around the world, the Spirit is moving and a voice is being heard. Welcome to the Voice of Evangelism with David Lankford. You can write to the Voice of Evangelism at P.O. Box 502, Kaiser, North Carolina 28020. We'll give you that address again at the close of today's broadcast. But here now is David Lankford.
Good evening, friends. David Lankford here today, and we welcome you to this edition of the Voice of Evangelism International Ministries. Today is Tuesday, last day of taxes, 4/15/2025. What a burdensome encumberment on the people. And when you see the disbursement, the expenditures of our government, and you see the unmitigated waste, and what is so sad and angers me is that these low-life Democrats are cursing. I've never seen so much profanity in my life. These people are idiots. These people are sheer idiots. The filthy debasement potty mouth. The one senator from Chicago, Illinois. I got a potty mouth. That's really becoming for a woman, isn't it? These people are disgusting. They have no morals. They have no etiquette, ethics, integrity, character. You can see years ago, people would not dare use vulgar language, publicly, television, or whatever the case. Well, I'm sure they cursed behind the doors. Winston Churchill smoked cigars and drank liquor like nobody's business. But you know, even Churchill, in his latter years, would bring in ministers and question them about the second coming of Christ. You see, every man knows there's a God, and one day there will be a day of accountability. Let me remind you again, so you can make preparations real early for our revival meeting in America at Hickory, North Carolina, at the Hickory Metro Convention Center, September the 26th, 27th, and 28th. Brother Jimmy D. Smith and I will be speaking in the morning. Brother Tim Hill will be speaking Friday night and Saturday night. I'll be speaking, as always, on Sunday morning, and we will be having communion following that as well. Put it on your calendar. Bring a friend. Come, and let's worship the Lord together and magnify His holy name. I left off yesterday in 1 Samuel chapter 28 in how the familiar spirit, the demon that the witch of Endor conjured up and brought up and prophesied, predicted the future. Predicted the future. Now think about this. There had to be some kind of a conference meeting, a call where everybody's on the same conference phone call, and here's what's being said, discussed, etc. And this witch of Endor, she does not bring actually Samuel. Saul perceives, he thinks, because of the description she gave him, that it was Samuel. Demons cannot bring up God's redeemed in that manner. So they feign, they pretend that they are that person, but at the end, they are not. So they predicted, this familiar spirit predicts the future, in that tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me. Now this is the demon, the spirit, feigning, pretending to be Samuel. Thou shalt and thy sons be with me, the Lord also hath delivered the host of Israel into the hand of the Philistines. Now, Samuel would have gone to Abraham's bosom like Lazarus in Luke chapter 15. The rich man died, he went to hell. Samuel would have went to Abraham's bosom. Saul would go to hell. Why? God had departed from him. God had abandoned him. God had absolutely, utterly forsaken him in every sense of the word. His judgment was sealed. So there has to be some kind of meeting, gathering, as we see in Job chapter 1, to discuss certain things about certain people. And of course, the discussion was no doubt about Saul, Saul's sons, and the nation of Israel, and how that they would be given over to the Philistines by the hand of God. But the satanic entities, demons, had foreknowledge of this event. 1 Samuel 31, verse 1. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell down slain in Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines followed hard upon Saul and upon his sons. The battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was sore wounded of the archers. And Saul said unto his armor-bearer, Draw thy sword and thrust me through therewith, lest these uncircumcised come and thrust me through and abuse me. But his armor-bearer would not, for he was sore afraid. Therefore Saul took a sword and fell upon it. And when the armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, he fell likewise upon his own sword and died with him. So Saul died, and his 3 sons, and his armor-bearer, and all his men that same day together. Now, Saul wanted to die lest the Philistines abused him. But nevertheless, that's what they did to him. They cut off his head. They stripped off his armament. And they took and they nailed him to the wall of Bethshan. What a mockery. What a mockery. Let me tell you about drifting away from God. Let me tell you about walking away from God. You will find yourself in a place that you could have never imagined. It's only by the mercy and the grace of God that I'm even here today. Having backslid on God and gotten deeply mired in sin. But it was the mercy and the grace of God that kept me when I was so far away from Him. Even though I was not in the right relationship, there was a measure of grace and mercy in my life. Oh, as I have grown older, I look back and I say, my. what mercy and grace you have bestowed upon me. You see, Saul couldn't find that mercy and grace. God left him and sent an evil spirit to him to fill the void. Saul could no longer hear from God. So what does he do? He goes to the underworld. Friend, when you seek answers from demons, hell, and Satan, you're in grave trouble. So many people today are involved with demonic entities and don't even realize the magnitude of what they're doing. And then in the end, they lose their lives. Many, sadly, through a accidental overdose, drugs, narcotics, alcohol. I think about the many people. And God has a way of dealing with everyone, just like Marilyn Monroe. Billy Graham went to her 2 weeks before she died. He tried to tell her about Jesus. She said, I don't want anything to do with your God. 2 weeks later, she was found dead. God is sovereign. I don't know why he does some of the things he does, why he does it. I do not question God. Who am I to darken God's counsel? Job did it, and it got him in trouble. He darkened the counsel of God. He cast shadow. He cast shade upon the Lord. And when God said, where were you when I framed the world and flung all the stars into existence? Job said, I think I have said too much. And he put his hand over his mouth. A lot of people would be wise to put their hand over their mouth, but their mouth is going to damn their souls. Saul ended up seeking answers from demonic entities, and they purportedly seemed to give him answers. Of course, it was not the answer he willed, not the answer he wanted, not the answer he desired, but they predicted the future because there are meetings, conference calls, conferences where they are aggregated and they collectively come together and decisions are made in the spiritual realm, the spiritual sphere. And many times people like Saul didn't know what was going on. But you see where his disobedience ultimately got him? God left him, sent an evil spirit, took his mercy and grace away from him, and he ended up seeking a witch to give him guidance and direction. Many times when people are demon-possessed, they are institutionalized for schizophrenia, meaning they have a false perception, or psychotic, meaning they've lost touch with reality. It was, if I recall, Steve Jobs that told Bill Gates, you don't know what you missed in never having taken LSD. It came out years later with the Beatles that Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds was about LSD. Lucy, Skies, Diamonds, LSD. And they admitted the LSD enhanced their minds. What they were doing was operating in a satanic, demonic world. And that's why the power of music can so easily arrest people. Be careful what you hear and what goes into your auditory system. When people become demon-possessed, they have lost self-control. Now, depending on where they are and who they are around, the demons know how to act, how to behave, so that they're not dealt with, meaning deliverance, the person being delivered from the demonic entity, the demon itself. We've witnessed, I've seen it firsthand, people who get so controlled by demonic entities, they disrobe, just like the man at the Gadarenes. But oh, thank God, when Jesus got done with him, the Bible said he was clothed and in his right mind. You see, people who are demon-possessed are never in their right mind. Demons have a way of subtly taking utter, absolute control of the person, and then that demon, through that person, seeks to persuade, influence, and steer other people down the road of destruction. There are people that are demonically possessed. They end up persuading, convincing others to go a particular way, when for the most part, the person would not have gone that way, but that demonic influence caused them to go in that direction. Because demons are spiritual beings and entities, they can never be satisfied. This is why when many people become demon-possessed, they can never be fulfilled. Because that appetite of that demon can never be satisfied. We have all sorts of psychological terms in the earth about people and their behavior. I want to be careful here. But that demon demands exploitation of the person in many ways. It can be through habitual lying, habitual deception. It can be habitual in a sexual application connotation. This is why it becomes so dangerous. So dangerous. People who are controlled by these entities, many times in the final state of psychosis, they disrobe, they take off their clothes, they run around naked. Why? That's the nature of a disembodied spirit. So the full effect of the demon-possessed person disrobes. Isn't it amazing? When Adam and Eve sinned, they immediately sewed fig leaves to cover themselves. Something mentally, emotionally happens to people when they are made to disrobe, as Hitler would put them in the gas chambers, strip off, told them they were going to shower, and then come out, but they were gassed and then cremated. There's something about demon possession and nudity in that person's life that makes them so more vulnerable. You see this in the concentration camps. Vulnerability. See, that is Satan. Satan doesn't want you ever thinking right. He never wants you making the right decisions. He wants to create a scenario in where you are profusely vulnerable. That is the exact opposite of Philippians 4:13, where Paul said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I can do it. Through Christ in me. You see, Satan takes people down a road where they become convinced they have no other solution. They have no other avenue, no other way out. Sadly, tragically, many times, they commit suicide. That spirit, that vexation has become so great. That's their answer, suicide. I believe in part that's what happened to Saul. I know he was wounded. The archers hit him. He was wounded. But he took his life so that he would not be abused. You see, Satan tells people that's your answer. That's your way out. It is not true. Let's look at the demoniac at the Gadarenes in Mark chapter 5, beginning at verse 1. And they, the disciples, came over unto the other side of the sea, into the country of the Gadarenes. And when he was come out of the ship, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs, the graveyard, the cemetery. No man could bind him, no, not with chains. Demons empower people with supernatural strength. This demoniac at the Gadarenes had such strength, no man could bind him, no, not with chains. Now, this is a physical binding. As I said, the lady said on the video, don't cast the demon out, bind the demon. The error theologically is the person remains demon possessed. They're never delivered. No man could bind him, no, not with chains. Think of the strength of this demoniac. Because that he had been often bound with fetters and chains, and the chains had been plucked asunder by him, and the fetters broken in pieces, neither could any man tame him. The man lost all self-control, and nobody could deal with him. Nobody could handle him. No one could work with him. And when you put fetters, manacles, chains around his wrists and ankles, he plucked them asunder. He broke them into pieces. Nobody could tame him. And always night and day he was in the mountains and in the tombs crying and cutting himself with stones. Was that an attempt at suicide? Or had that demon he took on the nature of just becoming a mere cutter, cutting his flesh. But something happened by the presence of the Lamb, Jesus Christ. When the demoniac saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshiped him. You see, the man, in his fragility, his humanity, he overrode the spirits that were in him. And he ran to Jesus and worshiped him. That shows you that demons are subject to Christ. And he cried with a loud voice and said, "What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of the Most High God? I adjure thee by God that thou torment me not." Now, this is the demon talking. He's talking through the man. The demons understand authority and submission. That thou torment me not. The demons have been tormenting the man. But the great deliverer, Jesus Christ, the Lamb of God, came on the scene, and now the presence of God tormented the demon. So the demon speaks through the demoniac of the Gadarenes. And Jesus says to the demon, "Come out of the man, thou unclean spirit." Did I not tell you yesterday that demons are unclean? They're filthy. And he asked him, Jesus, to the demoniac, the demon, "What is thy name?" And he answered, again, male, pronoun masculine. And he asked him, Jesus did, "What is thy name?" And he, the demon, answered, saying, "My name is Legion, for we are many." That's a military term, Legion, 6,000 men. So if you take the military term, there were as many as 6,000 demons in this man. Because they're spirits that can just keep pervading and permeating a person, a vessel. And he, the demon, Legion, besought Christ much that he would not send them away out of the country. Now, I remember years ago reading that, and I come to understand demons are territorial. They seize a particular place, like San Francisco, Las Vegas, Washington, D.C. Once they seize control of a area, land mass, they don't want to relinquish it. They don't want to give it up. They don't want to surrender it. So you might say the lead demon, Legion, said to Christ, "Do not send us away out of the country. We want to stay here in this territory. We want to stay in this part of the country." That shows you, once they have secured, taken over a particular land mass, they don't want to relinquish it. Most of you remember Henry Groover. There were times he would go to cities and pray. He'd walk and pray. There were times God told him to remit the sins, and he, through the Holy Spirit, would fill the void, the vacuity. But there were times he would say, "Don't remit the sins, don't take control because I'm not going to fill the void. That means the demons will just come right back. They asked Christ, do not send us out away of the country, the Gadarenes. Now there was there nigh unto the mountains a great herd of swine feeding. Now that shows you Jews did not eat pork. This was a place that was controlled by demonic spirits. That's almost a dichotomy there with the herd of swine feeding. And all the devils besought him, Christ. Now, as I read this, I see in this multiple voices. You ever observe those who say they hear voices? That's demonic activity, and those demonic voices are speaking. They're saying things. They tell people to do this, do that, whatever the case. And because of schizophrenia, which is really just demon possession, they hear all these voices and they do these bizarre things. And so as Christ stands there, all the devil's demons besought him, saying, send us into the swine that we may hear, or we may enter into them. So what I see here is a multitude of voices, echo chambers. No doubt repeating, saying the same thing. Don't send us out of the country. So there could have been as many as 6,000 voices. 6,000 voices. And all the devils besought him, saying, send us into the swine that we may enter into them. Can you imagine the echo, the chamber, the reverberation of 6,000 demons speaking at once? And all the devils besought him, send us into the swine that we may enter into them. And forthwith Jesus gave them leave. He gave them permission. You see, he had power, authority, and lordship over these demons, every one of them. So he gave them leave, or you might say, he gave them permission. And the unclean spirits, again plural, went out, entered into the swine, and the herd ran violently down a steep place into the sea. They were about 2,000 and were choked in the sea. Now, this demonstrates the power of demonic entities drove the herd of swine insane, suicidal. They ran violently. You see all of this violence, blood and gore relative to demonic activity. Satan indulges. He loves to see the shedding of blood. He loves to see death, destruction, ruin, calamity, war, famine. Everything that's negative in the earth, the devil glories in that. He loves it. He embraces it. That's why I said Hitler's men were given over to meth. They became more violent. The more blood they shed, the more blood they wanted to shed. The more they murdered, the more they wanted to murder. But these pigs, swine, when the demons entered into them, they ran violently down a steep place into the sea. They were about 2,000 and were choked in the sea. Suicide was their avenue of deliverance. And they that fed the swine fled and told it in the city and in the country. And they went out to see what it was that was done. And they come to Jesus and see him that was possessed with the devil and had the legion sitting and clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Deliverance allows the person to come back to their right mind. This demoniac at the Gadarenes was not in his right mind. Why? Because Satan had authority and lordship over his life through demon possession. Demons can be irritated by the mere presence of God. You may not understand this, you may not recognize this, but you can walk into a place, a room, an environment where there's somebody there that is demon possessed, and your godly presence provokes the demon to have ungodly, wicked, vile outburst. And then people say, I don't understand what just happened. I've never seen the person act like that. I've shared with you the story before. I just come off that 40-day fast in 1994. This dear sister of our church, one of her sons had overdosed. They asked me to come as I arrived to the house. They were carrying the body out on a gurney in a bag, zipped up. He was dead. I walked in the house and I sat down, and in my fragility, I attempted to minister to the family. And the sister of the brother says to me, why did God do this? And I said, God did not do this. The devil did this. The devil kills and steals and destroys. And I was sitting there on the couch with the mama and the sister. Another brother walks up to me. He has a .45 Colt strapped on his hip. And he looks down on me. I'm sitting down. He's looking down on me, trying to intimidate me. And he said, if there's a God in heaven, you tell that. And I cannot say what he said. It was that unclean and filthy and vile and immoral. Cursed God, called him all the names in the world. And he says, if there's a God in heaven, and called him all of these vile, vulgar, filthy names, he said, let him, and he spoke about God performing a sex act on him, the brother standing over me, trying to intimidate me. My spirit was crushed. Oh, I could have taken authority because I had just come off that 40-day fast. It hadn't been but several weeks. I lived and I walked under an anointing for 2 years that I've never had since then. You mortify your flesh to that degree, you enter into another level, another dimension spiritually. They see, I and my presence, and I should not say the presence of God that was upon me was provoking that demon to say those things. I was grief-stricken in my heart. I had never heard that kind of language when I was in the bars, the nightclubs, nearly every night of my life. When I was backslidden away from God, there was hardly a night that I was not in a nightclub, a bar, or somewhere. But the presence of God that was on me was provoking this scenario. And I looked to the mother and I said, I'm sorry. I'm leaving. I cannot help. And the funeral, she dropped her head. She said, I fully understand. And I got up to walk out. I never said one word to that man. I didn't say one word to him. And as I'm walking away, I'm thinking, this guy could shoot me in the back right here, right now, because that demon hated my mere presence. That's why I said you can go into a room, a scenario, a particular venue, you can stir up hell and its entities just by your mere presence. You don't have to do anything. You just show up. Jesus showed up, and the demons began to show out. They began to be brazenly manifest. Brazenly manifest. And they know that Christ has power over them. They know he can cast them out of the man. So they're already thinking beyond being cast out, and they petition Christ, do not send us away out of the country. Don't make us leave. We want to stay here. So Jesus, for whatever reason, maybe some of those of you more spiritual, insightful than myself, understand why Christ allowed them to stay in the country there and not leave. Maybe it was because if he did, there was nothing to fill the void, because the people there would not turn to Christ. That possibility exists because they run Jesus off because of what he did. Watch this. Mark chapter 5, verse 14. And they that fed the swine fled, told it in the city and in the country, and they went out to see what it was that was done. They went out to see what Jesus had done at the Gadarenes relative to the demon-possessed man whose name was Legion, the demon, the leading demon. And they come to Jesus and see him that was possessed. He's no longer possessed. That was possessed with the devil and had the legion sitting and clothed and in his right mind. They were afraid. Now, I don't know where the clothes came from, but the man was naked. When Jesus cast the demons out, notice what it says. The man was sitting. Prior to that, he's tormented. Chains, shackles, fetters can't hold him. He cuts himself. No man could tame him. Now there's peace, placidity, and tranquility having pervaded his heart, mind, soul, and spirit. He's clothed and he's in his right mind. Demon-possessed people are never in their right mind. Demon-possessed people are never in their right mind. If you're living close enough to God, there are times you can discern, you can pick up on those in a room that are under demonic control. Now, they have a way of tricking everyone. You see, that demon that possessed the damsel in Acts chapter 16 was trying to fool everyone and even enhancing the deception by saying, these men are men of God. They're showing us the way of salvation. What they were doing was mocking Paul. Paul knew it. And after several days, he had enough of it. So he turns and rebukes the demon and casts the demon out of the damsel. Those who came to see what was done here in Mark chapter 5 are disturbed. Because now the man was clothed and his right mind, and they, the community, were afraid. And they that saw it told them how it befell to him that was possessed with the devil, and also concerning the swine. So the demons come out of the man, they go into the swine. Somebody lost 2,000 pigs. 2,000. And because of that, the people of the city that came out, they began to pray to Christ, depart out of our coast, leave us. Because Christ upset the apple cart. He overthrew the demonic stronghold that was there. Now, I believe because the demons petitioned Christ, don't send us out of the country. When the swine ran violently down the steep cliff, went into the sea, choked themselves, those demons were looking for another place of habitation. I believe they stood around there merely waiting for Christ to leave, that they might have dominion, authority, and lordship over that part of the country. Don't send us out of the country. And he didn't. Don't send us away out of the country. And they said, send us into the swine that we may enter into them. So he gave them leave, permission, and the unclean spirits went out and entered into the swine, and the herd ran violently down a steep place into the sea. They were about 2,000 and were choked in the sea. Verse 18, Mark 5, verse 18. And when he was come into the ship, he that had been possessed with the devil prayed him that he might be with him. Now the man that's been delivered, he wants to follow Christ, commit his life to Christ. Howbeit Christ suffered him not, but saith unto him, Go home to thy friends, and tell them how great things the Lord hath done for thee, and hath had compassion on thee. And he departed and began to publish in Decapolis how great things Jesus had done for him, and all men did marvel. They marveled. They could not believe the man that had been demon-possessed, that what he had now become. Why? Because now they saw the man in his right mind. His right mind. When people are living in sin, and especially to those who are demon-possessed, they are never in their right mind. That is why, instead of the church being a force of deliverance to set the captives free, because the church is powerless and impotent, they cannot do what needs to be done. Instead of laying hands on people, rebuking the devil, taking authority over the circumstance, the situation, the matter, they leave people in their state of possession. Like the lady said, don't cast the demon out, just bind it. How stupid is that? Jesus said, I've come to set the captive free. Do not tell me Satan does not come to church and go to church and now has filled the church. When you see the debasement, the debauchery of pastors standing in the pulpits with rainbow-colored robes, or the commercial, Jesus gets us. The devil is not afraid because he knows no one there in the church has power over him to cast him out and to take authority over the matter of the situation. This is the problem in the church. The church at Thyatira, he said, you have suffered that woman Jezebel, which calleth herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants to commit fornication and to eat things sacrificed unto idols. There is something about demonic possession and sexuality that go together hand in hand. The Old Testament, you will see there were shrine, temple prostitutes, whores, perverted sexuality. Hophni and Phinehas were Eli's two sons. They're committing adultery. By the way, the word fornication covers every sexual sin that there is. That's how broad the word fornication is. Adultery, pedophilia, homosexuality, voyeurism, whatever the perversion is, the word fornication covers it. Phallus worship. Ashtaroth, Asherah, these false gods, these false deities. And sadly and tragically, many times evolves around sexuality and perversion, corruption. And these entities take control of the church And then the church allows every kind of perversity that can be imagined. I've never seen so many ministers today that are pedophiles. I've never understood that. What makes a 40-year-old man want to molest a little 2-year-old girl? You see, that demon spirit corrupts the entirety of that child's mind about love, true love, sexuality, what is wholesome, what is not wholesome. It all becomes distorted because of that demonic presence. It becomes terribly distorted. And drugs and alcohol go along with that, because being inebriated, being influenced by drugs, narcotics, or whatever, the inhibitions are done away with. They diminish. And people become brazen in their perversity, and they do things that are not only obscene, but they're perverted and they are distorted. This is why I cannot overly emphasize the necessity of prayer and the scriptures in these coming days. We need to pursue God in a great way. You're going to see more demonic activity in the coming days. You're going to see manifestations. You're going to see manifestations of demonic activity more so in the coming days. Why? Because the more sinful and wicked that people become, the more liberty it gives demonic entities. And they want control, authority, lordship in people's lives. Thus, Jesus rebukes the church at Thyatira. You allowed that woman Jezebel to teach and to seduce my servants. You got to walk in the Spirit to keep yourself right with God.
The Voice of Evangelism with David Lankford is brought to you by the faithful listeners and supporters throughout America. If you're looking for an uncompromising message, we invite you to tune in each week to the Voice of Evangelism. For more information, write to the Voice of Evangelism at P.O. Box 502, Kaiser, North Carolina 28020. That's P.O. Box 502, Kaiser, North Carolina 28020.